My husband wanted to open up our marriage, and now I'm dating his boss, so now he wants to close it. Let me start this by saying I didn't mean to start dating his boss. It all happened accidentally. My husband and I have been married for almost 8 years now, and we have always had a healthy marriage and great intimacy life, or so I thought. It came completely out of the blue when my husband sat me down a few months ago and said that he was feeling unsatisfied with our physical connection and he needed something more to be able to be fulfilled. I was so confused. We are intimate a couple of times a week, and he never gave any indication he was feeling unhappy in the bedroom. I was feeling hurt before he even dropped the bomb on me that he wanted to open up our marriage. I felt so small and unwanted, and he rambled on wanting to experience more freedom, but he assured me that he loved me and he wanted to stay together. I asked him why I wasn't enough for him and if there was anything I could do to make him happier in the bedroom or in our marriage in general. But all he said was that it had more to do with his masculinity than me. It didn't make me feel better, but I love him and we had already been together for so long. So reluctantly I agreed and we decided to be open from that day on. Our only terms was that we had to disclose to one another when we would start seeing people. The first couple of weeks were excruciating. He immediately started seeing a woman from his office and I would just stay at home and cry myself to sleep while I pictured him out with the younger, more attractive women. I was devastated for a while and honestly had zero interest in dating anyone other than my husband. But after 5 months of him dating one girlfriend and spending most nights with her instead of at home with me, I decided that I deserved to experience some freedom as well. I made a Tinder account one night while he was out with his girlfriend and I was surprised when I got over 100 matches on the very first night. No one was really catching my attention until I matched with this one very handsome older man. He seemed very successful and he was a gorgeous silver fox. I ended up messaging him and we went out a couple of days later. I remembered the feeling of waiting for him at the bar and it felt nice to have romantic butterflies for the first time in almost a decade. The date went amazingly and we went to see each other and eventually slept together. It was one of the most thrilling, exotic nights of my life. I hate to say it, but he was a much more talented lover than my husband, and I guess because he was older, he had more experience. Anyways, I told my husband about my boyfriend and he honestly seemed like he didn't believe me. He literally patted me on the head and said, "Aw, good for you, honey," before heading out the door to spend the night with his girlfriend. Things got messy in a way I could never have anticipated. I knew the situation was sort of rocky, but now I truly feel like I'm living inside a soap opera. Yesterday, my boyfriend texted me asking if he left a manila folder in my car the last time we saw each other. I found the folder and he asked if I could drop it off at his job. I was off that day and figured they were important work documents, so I gathered the folder and a little snack and he sent me his location so I could come drop it off. You can imagine how stunned I was when I followed the address and it took me to my husband's place of work. I had no idea that he and my husband worked together, and all I knew was that he was the head of whatever company he worked for and he held the highest position in his office. He never spoke much about his work and we just liked to relax when we hung out together. Well, I walked into the office feeling awkward about possibly seeing my husband. I walked to my boyfriend's office and he came out to take the folder from me. He thanked me and gave me a little kiss before going back. When I turned around, of course, my husband happened to be walking by at that exact moment. He had obviously seen his boss kiss me and realized he had been my boyfriend all along. His mouth made the perfect O shape and there was hurt creeping into his eyes. I felt sort of embarrassed at that moment, even though I had done nothing wrong, so I just said hi to my husband and quickly left the office. When my husband finally got home, he broke down in tears and said how I could do this to him. I reminded him that the entire situation was his idea in the first place, and that's when my husband said that he was willing to close the marriage if it meant I would stop seeing his boss. The thing is, I have real feelings for my boyfriend and I feel like my husband is being controlling and unfair. I find myself doubting my entire marriage and I think I might end up having to choose between the two of them. The last time I posted, my husband had just found out about his boss and me dating after my husband saw his boss kiss me at his place of work. He put the pieces together and it made him upset enough to ask me to close the marriage back up. I was so torn. I felt bad to see my husband hurting, but he had left me in a place of hurt for so long after asking for this arrangement in the first place. I admit I was tempted by the things my husband said in the conversation where he asked to close our relationship. Again, he just kept saying over and over that he would be better and committed. He kept saying I was the only thing he needed in the world and he had been blind to that before. These are all words I have been waiting and wishing to hear for so long, yet hearing them now I felt nothing but pity for my husband. I still loved him. We have been together for almost 10 years, and what I felt for him was incredibly strong after being life partners for this long, but I still love myself more. And as I said in my initial post, I have strong feelings for my boyfriend already. I told my boyfriend that I loved him, but I had to stay in this relationship too, and I didn't want to close our marriage back up. He was a mess at this answer. At one point, he got on his knees to beg me to reconsider, but I stood firm. I wouldn't hurt myself again to prioritize my husband's feelings. For the next couple of months, my husband went through a disorienting array of behaviors towards me. For the first few months, he was incredibly loving and attentive to me. He was cooking for us every night and insisted we had dinner almost every night together at home. He bought me flowers every day for 2 months and tried to initiate to sleep with me literally every night. These are things he's never really done to me before, so I was surprised and happy with all of these changes. Although it did seem sort of performative of him to only start being a good husband now in an effort to get me back for himself. If he really did love me, where had this treatment been before? He still seemed sad on the nights when I left him to go see my boyfriend, and I noticed him seeing his own girlfriend less. Anyways, I was feeling conflicted, but my boyfriend and I's relationship continued to blossom as we learned more about each other and kept spending time together. About a month ago, my boyfriend had taken me on a very luxurious, intimate date. He reserved an entire restaurant for us and arranged a helicopter ride for us after dinner. It was such a beautiful and romantic night. We had an amazing time together. There was no special occasion, and when I asked him why he did all of this, he said he just wanted to show me how much he appreciated his time with me and I deserved to be treated like a catch that I am. Before I left my boyfriend's house the next morning, I broke down crying while venting to him, saying that I wished my situation could be less complicated and that I was sorry if he felt like our relationship was unconventional because I was still a married woman. My boyfriend just listened and held me as I cried. He held me and stroked my hair and said he didn't care about my husband. He was just grateful for any time he got to spend with me and that I was a blessing in his life, and he was just happy. He was able to meet a wonderful woman like me. He got up to make me my favorite flavor of tea. He found out my favorite brand of tea a month ago and kept the stock at his apartment since then. When he handed me the tea, he looked into my eyes and asked if it could be his turn to be honest with me. That's when he told me that he had never met anyone like me and he had fallen in love with me. As soon as he said that, something just felt so right in my body and mind. I said it back to him and we cried happy tears together. We didn't worry about anything else at that moment. We just enjoyed the vulnerability. Nothing could ruin that moment for us. Or so I thought. But I still don't regret telling him the truth about my feelings. I do love him, but I wish it hadn't resulted in the mess that it did after my boyfriend returned to work after the date. I guess he started telling some of his coworkers about how well his relationship has been going. And it must have gone back to my husband. My husband didn't react well, and I almost dropped my phone when he called me the other day from the police station. That's when I found out that my husband had attacked my boyfriend in their place of work. Apparently, he had overheard some people talking about how his boss had been bragging about his partner, and it had sent him over the edge. He sounded like a jealous child over the phone. He had entered his boss's office in a jealous fit of rage and tried to punch him straight in the face. When my boyfriend deflected, my husband picked up a coffee mug and smashed it across his head. The cops had arrested him in front of his entire office, and I assumed my boyfriend had gone to the hospital for a head wound. My husband spoke on the phone with so much hate and bitterness. It was during that call that I realized the sane, good man I had once married was long gone. And the last bit of love I had for him wilted inside of my chest as he spoke about himself, as if he was a victim of an unhinged criminal who attacked another man for his own ignorant reasons. He said that he just couldn't stand his boss keeping us apart, and he had just gotten so angry after hearing that he was talking about me as if I was his own wife. I said nothing on the phone. I just thought of the choices I faced. I could go bail my husband out of the police station, or I could go visit my boyfriend in the hospital. It didn't take long after my husband called me from the police station to make my decision. I hung up the phone, sat down, and stared at myself in the mirror for a while, thinking about what I should do. I looked into the mirror, trying to see myself as my husband did. Then trying to see myself as my boyfriend did. I realized my husband loved me for the things I could do for him, for the ways which I had served him during our marriage. He never loved me for my personality or my accomplishments. On the other hand, after we told each other we loved each other for the very first time, my boyfriend listed the specific things he loved about my personality. My boyfriend would hold my face in his hands every time I saw him, and thanked me for my time and for my existence. I started to cry when I realized my boyfriend had been giving me the love I had been searching for my entire life. He made me feel more wanted than my husband had ever made me feel in almost 10 years of marriage. I cried harder when I realized I was watching the death of my old life. My husband had been slipping through my fingers for so long, but I hadn't been ready to let him go until this very moment. This was an intense moment of clarity for me, and even though I knew the decision was life-changing, I decided to go visit my boyfriend in the hospital instead of bailing out my husband. When I got to the hospital and saw my boyfriend with a large band-aid across his head, I cried and apologized to him for his injury being my fault. He reassured me that this was my husband's fault and that there was no way either of us could have predicted he would fly off the handle like that. I immediately told him I was leaving my husband and that I could never stay with someone so violent who had hurt him like this. At this point, my boyfriend and I had been dating for about 9 months. But when I thought about leaving my husband, I thought more about my own life than my boyfriend and I's relationship. Even if I didn't feel this strongly about my boyfriend, I would have always left my husband for attacking another man and making a scene like this at his job. If I have learned anything from this past year, it was that I only needed myself and that I deserved to feel valued and cherished in any relationship. I went home with my boyfriend that night and cared for his injury. The next day, I got right into looking for divorce lawyers. I knew my husband's family would be bailing him out soon, so I returned home to our house and packed all of my essentials before reserving a hotel room for the next week. I ended up barely staying in the hotel room since my boyfriend insisted that I would be more comfortable at his place. I wanted to be there for him as he healed, and things just felt right with my boyfriend, so I ended up staying at his place after leaving my husband. And I never left. The last time I spoke with my husband directly was the day he called me from the police station. He tried to contact me after getting bailed out, even blowing up my phone after he got home and found half of my stuff gone. But I didn't care. His mistakes meant nothing to me now. And a month after he was arrested, he was served with divorce papers. I could not believe my ears after my ex-husband had returned to his old job to confront my boyfriend in the parking lot on the day he was served with divorce papers. Luckily, my boyfriend was able to defend himself against my unathletic ex and he was arrested again. Apparently, the police had found a knife on him and he had been screaming at my boyfriend for ruining his life. I was so scared for my boyfriend when I heard about this. He could easily have been seriously injured. Yet, I wasn't shocked that my boyfriend had been able to defend himself against my husband. Though he is older than my husband, he is much more fit and agile. At this point, the court granted us both restraining orders against him, and all of this evidence made our divorce speedy. The next thing I knew, my ex-husband was serving jail time while I was selling our house and splitting the profit between us. After a couple of months, things slowed down and I found myself a peaceful life with my boyfriend. He welcomed me into his spacious penthouse apartment with open arms. He told me he didn't expect me to give him all of his time after my marriage had just ended, but he loved having me around and told me I never had to leave. Every day when he came home from work, he gave me a deep kiss and a tight hug and told me how much he loved coming home to me. It's been about a year since my divorce was finalized, and I've started thinking seriously about my future with my boyfriend. He has spent every day that he's known me and treated me like a goddess, and I'm so grateful that we found each other despite everything. He has told me that he would like to make me his wife one day, but only when I'm ready. He always prioritizes my feelings, and I can't believe I accepted anything less than this love for so long in my life. And that's how it ends, guys.